This is a reading from the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 9, verses 1 through 12. All this I laid to heart, examining it all, how the righteous and the wise and their deeds are in the hand of God. Whether it is love or hate, one does not know. Everything that confronts them is vanity. Since the same fate comes to all, to the righteous and the wicked, to the good and the evil, to the clean and the unclean, to those who sacrifice and those who do not sacrifice. As are the good, so are the sinners. Those who swear are like those who shun an oath. It is an evil in all that happens under the sun, that the same fate comes to everyone. Moreover, the hearts of humans are full of evil. Madness is in their hearts while they live, and after that, they go to the dead. But whoever is joined with all the living has hope, for a living dog is better than a dead lion. The living know that they will die, but the dead know nothing. They have no more reward, and even the memory of them is lost. Their love and their hate and their envy have already perished. Never again will they have any share in all that happens under the sun. Go, eat your bread with enjoyment and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has long ago approved what you do. Let your garments always be white. Do not let oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love all the days of your vain life that are given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil in the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do with your might, for there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going. Again, I saw that under the sun, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor the bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to the skillful. But time and chance happen to them all. For no one can anticipate one's time. Like fish taken in a cruel net, or like birds caught in a snare, so mortals are snared at a time of calamity, when it suddenly falls upon them. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Please join me in prayer. Lord, may the words of my mouth and meditations of all of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. And Lord, you are our rock and our redeemer. Amen. So sometimes we need the reality of death to shock us back into life. That was something that happened to me a few weeks ago. I was reading the Boston Globe, and on the front page, there was an article about people who are in their 40s and 50s, the age group I'm in, and realizing that there's a higher and higher incidence of cancer they're finding. And particularly for people who are sort of doing everything right, they're eating right, they're sleeping well, they're doing de-stressing and they're exercising, and yet something about our modern life, whether it's the stress and the busyness, whether it's the sitting too much, there's more and more cancers that are cropping up. And Carl and I were talking about this just anecdotally, because there's one acquaintance of ours in their 50s that passed away from cervical cancer this last year, and we can think of a handful of others who've been diagnosed with cancer in their 40s. Thankfully, all of them survived. They went through chemo. And so there's sort of this shock that can come sometimes, and I'm sure we've all had those kinds of experiences where we realize, we're not going to live forever, and it kind of takes off the blinders off our eyes to realize maybe some of the ruts we've gotten into in our lives, to realize some of our lost dreams, and maybe just the ways that we take simple pleasures for granted. And that's kind of the premise behind the American notion recently of the bucket list. Does anybody have a bucket list? Or know what a bucket list is? This is like this idea that we keep this list of all these things that we hope to do before we die, right? There was a movie with Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, and they did some really crazy things like, skydive and go see the pyramids in Egypt, things like this. But the writer of Ecclesiastes here has kind of a bucket list for us as well. And in the midst of human limits, he encourages his readers to just take pleasure in being alive. And he gives us some real concrete ideas on how to do that. And then when we think about the work of Jesus, we see that Jesus offers us this abundant life, while we also have the opportunity to look forward to the future with him. But as we dig into Ecclesiastes chapter 9, what we find, as we've been finding throughout Ecclesiastes, is, the teacher, he doesn't give us really an opportunity to say, take the good news or the bad news. He always gives us the bad news first, right? And so here's the bad news about life, according to the teacher in Ecclesiastes. First, he says, there's limits on justice. There's limits on human justice. So whether we're righteous or not, whether we're good or bad or wicked, whether we're clean according to the law or we're unclean, no matter what, the same fate happens to us all. Any talents or goodness that we have don't determine our rewards in this life. And he kind of sums that up where he says, the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to the intelligent, nor favor to the skillful, but time and chance happen to them all. So no matter what, there's some limits on sort of what you put in being exactly what you get out in life. So there's limits on sort of this justice and tit for tat. Then he says there's limits on life. And we saw this in our video a couple of weeks ago. We're all going to die. This is a very cheerful theme that he keeps coming back to, right? We're all going to die. And as you heard Chris say, this is one of these passages in the Bible where you go, what? He says, a living dog is better than a dead lion. Living dog is better than a dead lion. Now, I'm going to ask some of the kids in the room here, when you think of a lion, what do you think of? Got a word that comes to mind, or what do you think of when you think of a lion? Thoughts? Dominance. Okay, dominance. Yeah, like strong and rawr, right? Yeah. What about when you think of a dog? What do you think of? Do any of you guys have dogs? No, I know. Lady wants a dog. What's a word that you might use to describe dogs? Yeah, what do you think, Sheena? Yeah, that's a good word for a dog. Sure. Yeah. In here in the United States, we usually think about dogs as like our pets, right? And they are usually kind of happy-go-lucky. We think of them as cute. But back in the time of the writer of Ecclesiastes, dogs were not considered cute. They were considered ones that kind of came and ate up the scraps of the trash that nobody else wanted. They were considered dirty animals. So actually, the lions, right, were considered the same that we think about lions today. Dominant, majestic, strong, like the king of the jungle. But the dogs were considered kind of dirty. But his point is, even if dogs are not that great of animals, a living animal is always better than a dead animal. that's his point with us, that life is always better than death, but we're going to be limited, and we can't we're all headed to death, and we can't anticipate the day of our disaster. So we have limits on justice, we have limits on this argument of life, how long we're going to live. It's interesting, one of my favorite movies is Dead Poets Society. It's an old movie now, back in the 90s. And this movie has a similar kind of message to Ecclesiastes. At the beginning of the movie, there's Robin Williams plays an English teacher named John Keating. And he takes his class into the alumni hall. This is like this big New England prep school. Takes these boys into this hall, and he basically tells them, he says, lads, you're food for worms. In other words, we're all going to die. He reminds them of the poetry that says, gather ye rosebuds while ye may. In other words, while there's life, enjoy it. But he shows them the pictures of students of the past, and he asks them to just listen in, to look at them and say, you know, all of these people, they're now food for worms. But in the past, they had such life and energy, just like you do. And listen into them to hear their advice for you. And so they have listening. And what he does is he kind of whispers behind them. He says, seize the day, boys. Make your lives extraordinary. Carpe diem, seize the day in Latin. And what he does is encourage these boys to live life now and to live life to the fullest. And the rest of the movie is about how they take that advice and both the joy and the pain that they face in trying to do that. But a lot of that movie and what he encourages looks very similar to some of the advice that we get from the writer of Ecclesiastes. The writer says we can't do anything about the limits that are placed on us in this life, but we can determine what we do while we live and the attitude that we have while we live. And so he gives us a bucket list, and it's not these kind of once in a lifetime huge adventures, but it's really taking pleasure each day in what God gives us to do. So he says, enjoy your food, be merry with drink, celebrate. He talks about wearing the color white. That was a color of celebration. And wearing oil. That was like to adorn yourself. Kind of like when you're dressing up, you're going to put a little oil on your head. So celebrate. Enjoy the life of your youth, it says, but I think that encourages us to enjoy all the relationships that God gives us in life. And then his final advice is, whatever you find to do it with all your might. Give it your all, whether you're working or playing, whether you're in school or you're doing your chores, you have other relationships, whatever you have to do it with all you've got. And so it's pretty basic stuff, but it's so easy to forget sometimes in the hustle and bustle and the busyness of everyday life. But I wanted to share with you a few examples of how we might just take pleasure every day in being alive. I think one of those things is just recognizing the opportunities we have in the midst of everyday life to enjoy simple pleasure. For me, that sometimes kind of catches me unaware. So a few weeks ago, we had youth group, and we do it on a Sunday afternoon. And to be honest, at the end of the Sunday, I'm pretty tired. So usually I'm not super looking forward to going to youth group, but it was one of the last weeks. And it had been my idea. I said, I think it would be a great idea for us to have water balloons. That would be great. Let's play and have water balloons and just enjoy some fun with the kids. But the attitude that I came in, I was just, I don't know, some things were laying heavy on me, I think from church and other things. And so I come there and we're starting to do the games with the water balloons, and there's a couple of middle school boys who just decide they want to grab those balloons. They don't want to do overtime. They want to do their own thing. And so, I'm just going around, don't do that, put that away, don't do this, don't do that. And finally, we get to the point where we've done all the planned dates, but we have one more set of water balloons left. Well, everybody wants to just go crazy with the water, but we're trying to organize the chaos. We're like, okay, the ones who don't want to get wet go on this side. The ones who want to get wet go on this side. So we do that, and I'm planning to go over on the side that doesn't want to get wet, right? But something in me just kind of snapped. I said, you know what? I really want to get some of those kids with some water balloons, especially some of those boys that I've been chasing around all afternoon trying to get them not to hit with water balloons. And so I did, and I had the best time. I got soaked. Everybody got soaked. The kids had a great time. They were thrilled that the teachers joined in. And I just felt the Lord's pleasure after it. I just felt God saying, you take yourself way too seriously. You need to just chill out, girl. And it was just so much fun. It was just a reminder of just those simple pleasures we get, and the opportunities God gives us to have fun and to enjoy life. And it's such a good thing when we do that, particularly in the life of the church. And sometimes we have those moments that kind of crop out for us in everyday life, but then we have those times where we need to be intentional. Particularly in our marriages and friendships and enjoying life together. And that's something that's very important for us to do, whether we're taking vacations, whether we're taking Sabbath time each week. For Carl and I, one of the things we decided to do when we hit 20 years of marriage was that we're going to buy something for each other that will force us to do something fun together and something we'll just do together. So we bought some hiking boots, and we've been doing some more hiking for us. That's something that we really enjoy. It's us out on vacation, and because we spend a little more money than we usually would have, it means we feel like we have to use these as we spend money. And so that's been a way, an intentional way for us to just enjoy our lives together, enjoy our marriage, enjoy relationships. And then I think finally an example of being able to just take pleasure in being alive is looking for excuses to celebrate. I think Gateway Presbyterian does such a wonderful job with that, and they're my examples. I always love when we get together after we've been praying for someone, and we celebrate when God's answered that prayer. We celebrate healing. We don't just kind of say, oh yeah, God did that, but we celebrate it. Right? I think about Naomi and Samuel's ordination. Not only did we just celebrate here at the church, but we celebrated with the meal afterward. We celebrated when we got together in Lawrence at the reception hall. There was dancing and there was singing and food. We need those opportunities for joy to celebrate what God's doing among us. Jesus was a joyful person. He took pleasure in just being alive, right? We know that his enemies called him a drunkard and a glutton. And for those of you who maybe have been watching the TV show The Chosen, I think that's one of the things that they do really well in that show. It's just showing him in everyday life doing things like making toys for children, because of course he was a carpenter. Or dancing at the wedding in Cana, or having a water fight in the sea with his disciples. This is life with abundance that Jesus models for us. But Jesus also knew, unlike the teacher in Ecclesiastes, that our joy comes from beyond our circumstances. We can be joyful even when we're not happy, right? And we can have joy when we abide in the love of God and when we follow his command to love one another. Jesus also promises us that death isn't the end, that there is life beyond death, and that life has purpose as we join Jesus in proclaiming and demonstrating the kingdom of God, as we, by the power of the Holy Spirit, engage in works of truth, justice, beauty, and reconciliation. So we can't determine the time of our disaster, we don't know the date of death, but we can enjoy each moment that we're given as a gift from God and trust that all we do to join Jesus in building his kingdom here on earth will never be in vain. that all we enjoy of life today, everything we enjoy, that's only a foretaste of the joy we're gonna experience when our toil on earth is over and we enjoy Jesus' kingdom with all its fulfillment when it comes again. So, carpe diem, friends, seize the day. Enjoy food and be merry with drink, celebrate life, and enjoy the gift of relationship with others and whatever you have been given to do, whether you're working or playing, chores, and you're learning, give it your all. And remember that we follow a joyful God who celebrates life with us and looks forward to the day when we will feast with him in glory at the end of the age.
Amen.
Amen.